Morning, everybody. This is Jackie from Jack Gets Lost on a Book Haul, and it is Top 5 Wednesday time. If you are new to Top 5 Wednesday, it is a Goodreads group created by Ginger Reads Laney and Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, and is currently hosted by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. And it is where each month we are given some subjects that are book related, of course, where we pick our top 5 of that subject each Wednesday of the month. And Sam decided that May would be a rewind month, where we pick favorite topics from past Top 5 Wednesdays. So this week I am doing for May Rewind month. I am doing Top 5 Summer Reads, which this is if you watch this one, unlike the other Top 5 Wednesdays I just did so far this month, this one is a little bit better, and I actually I feel more confident in my choices. But I know that most people, for summer reads, they usually pick the light, fluffy contemporary, but I don't read contemporary. I mean, last year I made exceptions and read a few. Like, I read Becky Albert Talley's The Upside of Unrequited, and I read another contemporary, but it was one of these things where I was just trying it out, and I didn't actually buy it, I just got it from the library. So these choices are more like books that I feel like take more time to read, and unless, of course, when you're an adult, it doesn't matter. The summer doesn't really matter unless you're a teacher, because you still have to work. But I'm just thinking along the lines of with school and, like, as a student, ignore the dog. As I've said multiple times, there's a huge window right here, so my dog likes to look out the window. So I picked but basically I picked books that were really really long. One of them kind of has to do with something that you would do in the spring and summertime, and then one of them is a classic, and then the other one is a really, really long horror novel. Okay, so here it goes, and as always, these are in no particular order. They're in the order that they popped into my head. So the first book I said was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and it's because the length. Because I feel like during the summer, you would have more time to really devote to the story. This is, in case you are living under a rock and have not heard, or you're just not interested in fantasy. This is the story about this famous, sorcerer or wizard. I don't know if he would be considered a wizard or not in this world, and he is telling his life story to this chronicler who shows up at the little pub that he works at because he's retired. And each book is devoted to each of the books are basically going to be about a story told in 3 days. Like, this is the first day, and then the next book, The Wise Man's Sphere, or is it, I don't remember if it's The Wise Man's Sphere or A Wise Man's Sphere. I'll have to look at my copy. That would be the second day, and the third book, which he still has not written, and actually I found out possibly his reason for not writing it, his excuse now, and which really kind of annoys me because it has nothing to do with his damn book. But, anyway, that could also be a rumor, so I don't know if that's the actual reason or not. Someone said that might be the reason in a video, but I'm not going to delve into that because that's a whole nother bag of worms. And so this first book, The Name of the Wind, is basically, talks about the sorcerer when his name is Quoth. It's about when he's a little boy, his relationship with his parents, and how he was part of a traveling show, but then they get killed, and he believes it's by this evil force, and he wants to know more about this force. So after hearing from this other wizard who kind of becomes his mentor, about this famous wizarding school, that's it's kind of like Hogwarts for this world, he decides to apply to that school, and he becomes very successful at the school. And it's about his relationship with his friends, his first love. And it's a really great fantasy story. I mean, if you like the fantasy genre. it's such an interesting. It's such a fascinating hearing about this man's life story. And I know a lot of people don't like the character of Quoth because he's very, like, some people could argue that he's a bit, like, he makes himself seem too perfect and flawless and that he never does. But I mean, it's him telling the story of his life, so of course he's going to exaggerate and make himself look really awesome. That's actually what Sam from Sam on Thoughts and Tomes said, and I agree with her. That this character, yeah, some people don't like the character, and he kind of rubs some people the wrong way. But he's telling his life story. I think anybody who was narrating their life story would, pump themselves up and make themselves look better. And I'm sure if they made a movie version of this book, then I'm sure we would see the real story, even though he was narrating it, we would see what really. So this is what I would choose for one of my summer reads, because it's long and during the summer you have more time to devote to it. Now, I know, of course, this wouldn't necessarily be it would be a beach read for me, but I know, like I said, most people choose for summer reads, they choose like light and fluffy romance and contemporary novels, but I don't read a lot of those. So this is my idea of a summer read, despite its length. And, some people prefer reading these books around the fall time, in the winter time, for the reasons I said I would read them, kind of for the same reasons I would say I'd read them during the summer. Okay, so the next book I said was book number 2 is, now I kind of cheated with this one, because this is one that I have not finished, and that is, let me see, where is it? Here it is. That is East of Eden by Steinbeck. I feel like Steinbeck, just from what he writes about, the stories he writes, the things I've heard that he writes about, I feel like they would be good. They would be summer reads. Just like I don't know why, but I get that vibe from his stories. I just, or at least from what I've heard about them, because I've only read one of his novels, and like I said, I'm kind of in the middle of this one. But like in middle school, we had to read Of Mice and Men, and at the time I wasn't as into it, but I definitely want to give Steinbeck another chance. But this particular one is, because I'm not finished with it, like I said, I'm kind of cheating here, it's hard for me to sum it up, but so far it's like, we have the story, the first part is, it's these two brothers, and one of them gets married to this perfect, beautiful woman, but she's kind of a horrible human being. She's kind of a jerk to him, but he impregnates her with twins, and she doesn't want to be a mom to these twins, and she essentially abandons him, and he's struggling with it. And I don't know if she's the same person, but there's also a bit of a storyline with a woman that's a prostitute, and how she's and like I said, I think she might be the same woman that is the mother of his twin boys, but I don't know. But she's really this horrible human being too, and she, like, the woman that is kind of her mentor, she drugs her at one point and manipulates her, and kind of takes over the prostitute house where they work. As you can see, I haven't finished it, so I can't really sum this book up. But like I said, I feel like any of Steinbeck's works could be summer reads. I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with me, but this is just what I think, that I feel like these books just, and again, it's about the length. I feel like summertime is the time to read longer books, because you have more time. Although, again, like I said, as an adult, you work all year round, unless you're a teacher. So I just like I said, I just feel like John Steinbeck his books are very summery reads, which, again, I know it doesn't make any sense, but the most books that people would read during the summer, I don't read those books at all. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3. Now, this one probably makes more sense than any of my other ones. And that is Kate Moran's The Forgotten Garden, which actually, it's funny enough, I watched one of the booktubers I like, Getting Hygge with It. I don't remember. I mean, she's April from Getting Hygge with It talked about this book and had some criticisms about this book that I didn't even think of, that I didn't even think about, because, and it has been a long time, but, I've always said this is my favorite one. This was the first one I read by Kate Moran. So far, I think I've read all the books that are out, and she has a new one coming out right now. But this one is about this young, it's about this woman who, she was abandoned at the docks when she was a little girl and taken in by the dock master, and he kind of adopted her, and she learns from him that he's not her real father, and she needs to go find her father. And she decides to go find her biological family, and there's something about it. As you can see, it's been a long time since I read the book. You would think I would remember it better since it was my favorite one of her books, but, it's not my favorite book of all time. It's just my favorite of her books. And the young woman, the only thing she had was this book of fairy tales, and there's a garden involved, that she decides to kind of resurrect. So it kind of has a plot that's similar, so that plot is a little similar to The Secret Garden in a way, although it is nothing like The Secret Garden. It is not the same story at all in The Secret Garden. It annoys me because I actually heard that people think this is like The Secret Garden, that Kate Moran copied off of Frances Hodgson Burnett. But no, this is nothing like. The only thing this book has in common with The Secret Garden, well, there's two things. It's historical fiction mostly, and there's this magical garden. But it's nothing like The Secret Garden. And I could not believe that I heard that someone said that it's just like The Secret Garden, it's the same story. It's like, really? Did you even read the book? Just because it's about a part of the plot has a garden in it does not mean it's the same as the childhood classic. But, yeah, this is really probably the only one that kind of makes you think summer and spring weather, because it's about, because there's there's a garden involved. But like I said, I don't read the usual reads that people consider summer reads. But I just think this is a beautiful book. I love Kate Moran's writing style. I love all of her books. The only reason, and in defense of it is true that this is the first one I read, so I probably have a special place. So I have a special place in my heart for this one. But I need to reread it and see if I kind of agree with April on the criticisms that she gives. Anyway, okay, so that was number 3, I think? Yeah, number 3. Okay, so the next one, number 4, is the only short book I have here, and that I would pick for summer read, and that is the Great F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. Now, I know this is not everybody's cup of tea, but this is a book set in the 1920s. It's centered around this young man, Nick Carraway, who wants to be a writer someday. He works, at a, accountant, I want to say he's an accountant or something. And he's staying next door to his cousin and across the way from where he lives, across the lake, because they live in a lake town, there is a man, who throws these fabulous parties that everybody wants to go to. And you have to get an invite. It's really like, he's like a celebrity in this little beach town. And Nick somehow ends up getting an invitation to go to this guy's party, and he hears all these rumors about this guy. And then when he finally meets him, the guy is this very charismatic, charming man, and he right away takes a liking to Nick, and the two of them become friends, and he helps him in his job and everything. But then you find out that Gatsby has an ulterior motive, because he knows that Nick lives next door neighbors with his cousin, who Gatsby once a long time ago had like a little love affair with his cousin, Daisy. Unfortunately, Daisy is married to this guy who's kind of an asshole. He's very controlling. He's cheating. He's sleeping around on her. But Nick, wanting to help his new friend Gatsby, arranges for this meeting between Daisy and Gatsby, and they kind of rekindle the old flame. And Gatsby basically wants her to leave her husband and wants them to try have their relationship again. Now that he is well off and very rich and stuff, so he figures, now that I'm in a great place right now, we can start over. We can try our relationship again. So it's basically, so that's basically the plot. I really love this book. First of all, I love the 1920s. I love reading books that, I love the Diviners, but I have not continued that series. I read the first book, but it took such a long time for the second book to come out that I just never got around to rereading and getting back into the series. But I do, either way, I love the 20s. It's a quick read, doesn't take long. This is one of those books that you would study in school. In my junior or sophomore year of high school, I read this book for the first time I read this book. I just fell in love with the story. And like I said, I like rich people behaving badly kind of storylines set in a different time period. Although I am interested in, one of my favorite booktubers talked about this one book called The Party, which is set in the modern times, but it explores kind of the same themes of rich people behaving badly. So I do want to check that out as well. But like I said, this is a quick read. It's easy to get into. Fitzgerald's writing style is not that hard to get into either. Now, of course, I know that it's not everybody's cup of tea, and a lot of the characters are really unlikable people. They're horrible human beings, a lot of these characters. But I don't expect characters to, when I read a book, I don't expect the characters to not be horrible or to be likable all the time. It makes it more interesting story. I still get frustrated with them, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't want to read this book because the characters are unlikable and most of them are horrible people, because that's not how humans in real life. That's not how people are. People are often horrible human beings, and you don't see yourself as horrible, but sometimes someone else might see you as a horrible human being. And not everybody's likable. If my life was in a book, I might not be a likable character. But because, this is the only book that is not that long and wouldn't take that much time to read, and that's another reason why I picked this one as a summer read, just since most people like reading things like contemporaries and romance novels, not romantic, rom-com type novels. Of course, this is not a romantic comedy, but yeah, so that I picked that one as well. At least the bookworm didn't fall out. That's a good thing about those magnet books. I had some books that just fell on the floor, and it's a good thing that East of Eden has a magnet bookmark in it, because the regular bookmarks tend to fall out on me, but the magnet ones, they will stay secure. Okay, so the last book I said, this is kind of just, like I said, I just quickly randomly picked this one for the reasons for most of the books in this pile. And that is Stephen King's It. Now, I know most people probably read this around October time because it is a horror novel. It's about these 7 kids that live in the small town of Derry, Maine. And their town is essentially haunted by this evil monster that is basically fear itself. And it will take multiple forms of whatever you're afraid of, but its favorite form is this clown called Pennywise. It's this picture right here on my copy. And these 7 kids are the only one, and this clown will eat children because they are the most vulnerable and their fears are the strongest. And somehow these 7 kids are the only ones that survive it. And then years later, when they're adults, they must come back to the town and defeat the monster, because the monster, even though they've temporarily put him out of commission, he has come back 27 years from his 27 years sleep. And it is up to these kids to stop this monster for good. And it is it's historical fiction. Originally it's set in the 1950s, and then, of course, when Stephen King wrote this, it might have been, when he first wrote this, it might have been in the 80s when he published it. So, but now the 80s is considered, historical for us. Let's see. Let me see if there's let me look at the copyright date. Okay, so yeah, this was first published in 86. So at the time when it was first written, it was not technically considered a historical fiction. But now, since we live beyond we're in the 2010s, it's considered, I feel like you could argue that it's historical fiction. Hence why they have a lot of things that, like, a lot of problems. Stephen King has a lot of problematic elements in his novels, a lot of things that people don't like there's references to racism, and there's some, like, naughty times in his books. Like, there's a really disturbing scene in this particular book that they never put in screen adaptations of this novel, because it's like just weird, and I'm thinking, you dirty old man, Stephen King, you dirty old man. But yeah, so I'd say, like, I picked this one because I feel like this is a book that during the summer you could take your time with it. And it's also escapist. Like, that's the kind of reader I am. I'm big on escaping. I like books that I can escape into. That's why I don't like contemporary romance or anything like that, or contemporary general. I mean, I'll read, like, family dramas and stuff like that. Like, I just finished This Is Where I Leave You, and that's very much a family drama. But most of the time, I like books that I can escape into, and this is definitely a book you can escape into, because, I mean, it's about these kids being eaten by this monster. Okay, so those are the books I would pick for the summer reads. So what are your summer reads? What would books that you read during the summer? Are you like me and you don't have specific books that you would read during the summer? Or are you like everybody else and read, like, contemporaries and fluffy books that just, So if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you have not already. I will appreciate it very much, and love to all my subscribers I already have. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos, and I hope you continue to support me. Alright? Enjoy your reading. Bye.